expect Airbnb to work its magic. It is not going to work like that. You need to understand a lot of things that has been taught, classes, super classes, base classes, and JSON, working with JSON files. That's everything you're going to do here. So if you just kind of copy codes, you would have to do revision, do that might delay. So let's talk about a web application. Okay, it's basically an application that works runs on the web, right? I mean, you can access it via the web, and then also um, is being run by a web server, right? So if you don't understand what a web server is, don't worry, we'll look into it now. I hope I'm still audible, guys. Am I audible? Okay, thank you very much. So this is Canva. This is where I do my I do my designing on my. I'm actually a how do I say a graphic designer, right? So this is why I do my designing. Okay, so what you are going to be doing in the Airbnb clone, right? Is simple, but it's not that simple. Okay, so the diagram I have here is a web infrastructure design. Okay, so if you can see from here, we have the client. Okay, we have the client, and then the client is basically the user, the person using your application, right? So this is the user. What happens is that okay, I guess you've learned networking, so you know what is going on here with the IP addresses and then returning the domain name, right? So you send the domain name, you get the IP address, right, to the DNS. You know the drill, you know how that goes, right? And then when you get the IP address, you send the IP address as what? As an HTTP request, right? HTTP request. And then it goes to what? It goes to the server, right? Try and understand me here. If you understand what is going on, then you'll be able to understand what you are doing. So when it goes to the server, you sent a request. Let's say the person entered www.airbnb.com, right? So the Airbnb we are trying to build is just a clone, right, of this Airbnb. Let me get the main website. Maybe you probably already know. We are trying to create a clone of this website, right? Airbnb. So it's a web application that is used for you can go check it out, right? Because of time. So you are building something like this. So what happens is that okay, actually when you come here, you are able to, because of my network, forgive me, you're able to log in, give your details, things like cities, room, your name, your email. So it's just like most um web application out there. You give them your details and then it gives you, right. So you are being asked to clone this, right. And then for now it is just, let me say, the back end, right. So I'll explain that. So see, let's say the user is here, right, and then the user is on their laptop and then they enter something like www.airbnb clone, right? And then it sends what? It sends that www.airbnb clone to the DNS, and the DNS returns the what? The IP address, right, to the user. And it sends it in the form of what? HTTP request, which you already know about. I assume you've learned it, called 18. You've learned about networking and everything. So see, when a request is sent, okay, it gets received by the what? The web server. So this is a server, right? Because it is an HTTP request, it gets received by the web server, right? And then what the web server does is it displays, first of all, this thing you are seeing here is being displayed, or is when I entered the www when I entered airbnb.com, I received this as what? As a home page. So that is what is happening here. So when you send it to the web server, right? And then the display and everything is done, right? You can see that there is an arrow here marking through the web server and the code base. So the code base is where your files, the implementation of your codes, everything is there. So this is where you are working on now. This is where you are working, right? So you are working in such a way that you're able to return. Um, Basically, you're able to just give the user backwards their response. Basically, so let's say you have something like this. Okay, so this is where you are going to be implementing your codes, and then you are going to integrate it with the web server and then the others. But so basically, this is the back end. And then we have the code base and we have the database, right? That is the back end. So you are going to be working here, right? And then you are going to make sure you are going to put down, you are going to put in place codes, right? The main structure of your code that is going to be responsible for what? For um dealing with what? Or let's say communicating with what? These things. And they are going to return it what? As an HTTP response to the user. A lot goes on, but that is just the idea, right? A lot goes on, and then which most of you already know, right? So let's get into it, right? You know that in programming we have front end developers, we have back end developers, and then we have the others, right? We have database specialists, we have a lot, right? So right now we are dealing with what? The code base and then the database. Okay, that is it. So let me not talk much so that I don't waste my space here. Um, so we have, let me write something down. We have the front end, as you already know. What I'm doing now is what I'm explaining to you how the project is supposed to be done or how you can go about it so that you don't look confused or you don't have any idea anything about it. Right? That is what I mostly do, right? And then we have what? We have the database. All right. So we have the front end. The front end, you will be dealing with the data. So forget about the front end. When you are dealing with web static, you will create the front end. Now focus on what? The back end, right? And let me say, well, maybe the database, right? Because you are going to be storing, right? So this is for storage, right? Because when you receive from the user, yeah, you must have a place you are going to be storing that kind of data or information, right? And then, so let's treat with the back, let's do with the back end, okay? So most of the resources or the basic resources you are going to be needing, okay, is provided by ALS. They try to, I mean, it's a lot, right? And then the best I can do is, okay, I can explain at least the basics to you, right? So you can you can check out the resources. Don't make sure you read them, right? So we are dealing with what? The back end, right? And then maybe we can say the database too. So we have something called CRUD, okay, which we've already read by this time through the resources. We have something called CRUD, okay, that is create, read, um, update, and then what? And then destroy or delete, basically, right? And that is what you are going to do. Everything sums up to being able to create a user, read, update, and then delete, right? So the concepts you'll be needing, you need to know at least CRUD, and then you have to you also have to learn about this one, the CMD model, right? So I'm just basically using it to lay down what we are going to learn about in this meeting. And then we also have the UID model, right? And then you also have the daytime model. These are the resources you'll be needing. These are the things you need to know, right? And then we also have the how to work with arcs and what, and then quacks or however you call it, right? That is arbitrary keyword arguments and then what, basically. So we have the JSON. You need to know JSON, and then um the JSON is for now in our database. You see, we have, I mean, if you are a back-end developer, you know that the database, we have languages we use for the database and everything. But for now, let's just say the storage, okay? The storage, you are going to be using what? Files, right? You are going to be using file storage, right? So let me get it well. You are going to be using file storage, right? So just focus on, and then you are going to be using JSON file. So the user's input on their data, we are going to store it in a file. I know, right? We are going to store it in a file using what? JSON. That is serialization, right? And then the serialization. Why do I have a feeling that this video has stopped recording? Let me see. Right. So we have serialization and okay, still recording. We have serialization. Let me get the spelling right. Serial. Okay. And then deserialization. That is you are going to be, yes, basically. All right. So If this is confusing to you, don't worry. We are going to go through them one after the other, starting with what the CRUD. Let me start. Let me say something if I didn't start. Okay. So with working with what the JSON file with the serialization and then this serialization. Okay. You'll be dealing with something like, let me write this down. You'll be doing let's you put right you put in place. I think this is on the intranet. You put in place, which I'm not allowed to show you, right? A parent class, right? You are going to call the base model, right? And then this base model is what you're actually going to use for the initialization and the what and then the serialization or the deserialization, right? So that is one thing you're going to do, right? You're going to put in place a parent class. So all these you'll be using Python for that, and then you're going to develop a simple flow. Okay. I said if you don't understand it, don't worry, I'll get time to explain everything. And that simple flow is what you're going to use for what? For the serialization, right? Or the deserialization. Okay, okay, right. And then what it basically entails is that you are going to be converting an instance, right? An instance, you all know what an instance is, okay? You are going to convert it into what? Into a dictionary. And then after you convert it into a dictionary, that is what you are going to be doing with the course. After you convert it into a dictionary, you are going to be what? Um, you are going to place it in what? In a JSON file or a JSON format or a JSON string, right? And after that, you store it in what? In a file. Okay, so this is what your simple flow should do. It should be able to convert an instance into a dictionary, and then from the dictionary into what? A JSON string, right? And then you just kind of store it in what? In a file. So let's start with what? Let's start with a CRUD, right? That is a CRUD. A lot is I'm coming. Let me do this. Let me check this my notes here. If there is something I need to say before. Um, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Um. Okay. So, in case the parent class, I've talked about that. Right. So let's start. So with the what? With the CRUD, as I talked about, which is what? Which is the create. Sorry. Which is the create, read, update, update. Okay. Easy, easy. And then what? And then the delete or the destroy. Let me say destroy because I'm a Linux user. And then you know the drill. Linux mostly like to use such words, right? So we want to create, read, update, and then destroy, right? And then what we are going to use that is what we are going to use the CMD what model to be what to be able to create. That is, you should be able to create a user, right? With the backend, you should be able to create a user. You should be able to read or let's say display, right? And then you should be able to update in case the user makes changes. I mean, your code flow is supposed to be able to handle that perfectly. And you should be able to destroy a user. Let's say in the database, when someone created, and let's say the person is no longer using an account, you want to delete it, you should be able to delete. Okay, that is what code is basically about, right? So create, read, update, and then every backend developer is supposed to what? At least get this concept, and then they'll be what? They'll be good to go, right? So we are going to be using what? A Python model called what? The CMD model. Okay, let me write that one down too. We are going to be using what? Is I think it's small, right? A small CMD model. And then it's rather the class that starts with capital. Right? So it is a model in what? In Python. And then what this model does is okay. You remember your our shell class, right? What did we do in our shell class? We actually created an interpreter, or what should I call it? yes, a shell interpreter, right? And then let me get this. Sorry about that. No one should listen to my keystrokes and guess my password. I beg you. So we have this ls, right? Oh, yes, you're able to run a command and then what? You just kind of. So we are going to do the same thing, but with Python, and then it makes it easier and then beautiful. Makes it very simplified and beautiful with what? With a CMD model. You just have to import it and then you have to use it, right? So let me we are going to be using this model to what? To create, read, update, and then destroy. So I'll take time to explain what the CMD model does, right? Or how it works. So that you're able to understand it that even if so that when you get to the task, it doesn't look all kind of how do I say Arabic or Hebrewish to you, right? So let's do with that. Now let me explain something real quick. You see, we are using what? We are using a JSON file to store our data. Okay. If you check the resources, there is something called modularity, right? You want to be able to make sure that in future sake, right? Because obviously we are going to be updating it. We are not going to store, I mean, a big project like this in what? In files. You are going to update it and you are going to use SQL or anyone that's our preferred. By ALS, we are using SQL, right? And you are going to be using it to store the data. So your code flow, right, must be smooth in such a way that in case you need to make changes, you don't need to what? You don't need to update everything again. You just need to replace some parts of the code with what? With the database codes, and then everything just kind of switches back in case. So you need to take note of that. Okay. You need to make sure that what it, you are working with your codes in such a way that you can easily replace the database. And then one way you can do that is what? You must separate the base model or the base codes from what? From the database. And that is what ALS wants you to do. I mean, you figure it out, don't worry. You figure it out. So let's get to it. Okay, bear me a moment, okay. And then also, okay, I think I'll explain that later so I don't confuse you. So I've cloned the Airbnb. Let me just I'm using Ubuntu virtual machine. Okay, let me open my VS Code and let me explain how the CMD works. Okay. Is anyone having any questions before I move on? Is anyone having any questions? Hello, guys. Okay. Anyone else having any question? Okay. So I get that maybe I'm a bit fast because I need us to be fast about it. I want to use 2 hours today to explain the basics, and then tomorrow we can do something, right? I mean, we'll do something today, but basically. So, so this is my VS Code. Let me create a file, and let's call the file what? My console, right? What you're about today is you are just coming to create a Python version of what? Of our shell interpreter, and then you see how simple it is. So since it is what? It is a model, you need to what? You need to import it, right? It is called CMD. So we've imported what? Our CMD model, okay? And then we are what? We are going to work with it, right? So I named it my console because it's basically you let's say we have the console is actually, I mean, recently I found out the console is actually for the what? For the backend developer, right? Basically, because the backend developer should be able to create users and then read and update and then destroy them, right? And then they are going to be using what? The console to do that, because the backend user doesn't have access to what, or is not used to pay like it's not used to the front end, going to the web page. I mean, nothing, there is no feature there that will make the backend developer be able to delete a user or something. I don't know if you guys understand the drill, right? So it is a console is going to use for everything. In case he wants to delete a user, a certain user has stopped using the account or maybe has deleted the account and he has to destroy it, the user's data and everything, right? That is it. So the console actually belongs to the backend developer and he is supposed to what? Take care of that. And then one way he can build a console is what the backend user developer can build the console is what is with a CMD model, and that is what I want us to look into it. Right? Let me see. Right. So see, let's do something, right? So this is a class. We already know what a class is, right? We already know what a class is. And then let's call this command, right? Let's name this class command. And then this class is supposed to inherit from what? The CMD what? Model, right? It's supposed to inherit a class called CMD. And that is the class I've done here, right? It's a simple framework for writing line-oriented command interpreters, right? That is basically what I've done here. So we have imported. Yes, you have to capitalize it, right? This C here has to be a small letter. That is the model. That the model name, that is what I was saying in my explanation. The model name is what? Is small, but then the class name is what? Is capital. That is the difference, right? So a moment. Okay, okay. So that is what we have done here, okay? And then um well, okay, so let's do this. Right. And then when you are done with that, okay, after you've inherited from what? From the superclass, how the CMD model works is it works in such a way that it has a way of what? Of taking, or it has a way that you're able to define a method for for it. Right. And then we already know what a method is, right? A method is basically like what a class does, right? Basically like a class does, or a function. Come again. This one. Oh yes, yes. I mean, for conventional sake, you can capitalize, but any way you want. It's not really necessary. I actually wrote mine this way, so. But then ALS will give you how they want it. I think that one is HBNB something, right? So they will give that one to you. But this is just me trying to create what my own, and then this is how I have just done it. I don't know if it makes sense to you. Hello, does it make sense? Okay, okay. So let's do this. So I mean, we can add a comment that what this is what we can add a comment. This is a, how do I say, a simple, how did they call it? Let me see. Yeah, it's a simple command. Let's say it's a simple command line interpreter, right? It's a simple command line interpreter, right? So this is just me adding comments. So in order for you to define what a method in this model, there is something you don't obviously need the def naming conversion, right? And then you need to do something. It is called do, right? Basically, what the do does is you need to always make sure that in order for it to the model to recognize it as what as a command it is expecting from the user, you need to what you need to add the do, right? So it's something like this. When you do this, then you know that it knows that what it is a command you are trying to say that you're expecting this command from what from the user. So you can just keep it in there like it's like let's say do this, right? And then it just kind of sticks in here. So let's say you want to write a method, right? Whenever the user enters the command greet from our command line interpreter, we just want to greet them, right? I don't know if it makes sense. So we can just say we do this and then we just say do greet, right? Let's say an underscore and then we do this, right? And then we have the self. I mean, you already know what the self is doing here. Okay, so we have the self and then we have the line, right? And then the line is actually the input we are going to be taking from what from the user. So let's do something like this. The line is what we are taking from the user, right? So let's say we just want to print something like um hello world. Let's see. Oh, yes. He said, yes, I'm from the C word, so forgive me about that. Okay, I mean, after coding for with C for a long time, you get used to it, right? So this does the magic. right? So whenever the user comes to a console and then they type greet, it just prints what hello world. This is what we want to do, right? So now understand that this is how you want you just kind of, how do I say, pass it to the user, right? And then so the line is from the user as what you are taking the line as what as input from the user, and then the self is what is just it is just a parameter for the method, and then it's conventionally named self, right? It refers to the instance of the class, right? As we already know. So let's do something here. When you do this, you are not done, okay? You want to do something. There is an idiom in Python called if the name, how do I even write that? If the name, right? I mean, we know that is equal to, let me make this single quotes. It's equal to main. Yes. That is to say that if it is what? If this is the main program, or it's basically just to say that a command we want to check if the script is what? The main program. Then notice what I'm coming to do here. What I did here was what I call for my class, okay? That is the class we have created, and then what do I do? And then I just go on to pass this method to it. And then this method is what? This method is called command loop, right? What this method does is it makes sure that what it keeps the user in what? In a constantly running loop. Just as if you're if you're building a simple shell, you can have used while or something like that, right? So it just catches the person in what? In a loop. So basically, this is it, right? A lot goes on into it. I'll take time to explain. So let me just do this before I forget. We need to add that. We need to find where this makes us. Um, this makes it possible. I mean, it's ALS instructed, but it makes it easy for me to run it with what? With my how do I say? God, if you guys have realized, I'm nervous, right? I don't want to mess up, right? So let's do greet and then okay. Why isn't it working? Do greet and then it prints hello world. It is saying unknown syntax. Okay, sorry about that. I think it's because I used double underscore for the greet. Sorry about that. I just saw that it was long. So it's single it's just one, right? It's just one. Don't make it double, right? Remember that. And then you say greet and then it greets the user that what hello world. So that is basically how the CMD model works. Okay, I mean we are not going to be using it to do greets. We are going to use it to do things like create, read, update, and then delete. But I just want you to understand how it it works. Okay, I just want you to understand how it works. But you realize that what we are not even done. We have a problem. Okay, that is the problem is if the if you are using the console or the backend developer, and maybe you are in a company and then you left, right? After you wrote this code, they employ another backend developer and then they come to the console and then they are not able to I don't know, how do I say, they do this and then they are not able to quit, right? I mean, when they press Control plus C, it just kind of throws back this traceback error, right? So there is also a method that we can use for that, right? And then that method is called what? It is called end of file, as some of us already know, right? So we can create that one to here. We can define that method. Let's define that method to here. I'll try my best to explain everything that you are supposed to know. And let's say, right, this is us trying to define the end of file. I mean, if you did the simple show, you know that what EOF means end of file, and then that is when the user presses Control plus D, or and then here to if maybe the user also presses um Control plus C, right? So it's called the end of file marker, and then this handles that. And then what does is it returns true, right? That means end of file is what is implemented in what in the code, and then so let's clear. We will do more about that. So let's clear here and then let's just do this. Greet, and we have our greet, and when we press Control plus D, it just kind of executes successfully. As you can see, it is not giving us a new line here, right? We want a new line there, so we can just print a new line right before it what it just it's not easy right before you return, and then that handles that. Let's see. Let's see, greet. Okay, and then when we press Control plus D, it just does the magic, right? So this is how the CMD model works, right? So let's say if the user comes to the console and then they do something like create, right? And then it says unknown syntax create, right? I mean that is not even verbose enough, right? Because unknown syntax create does not even give us what a very clear or a very good explanation. So there is another, but that one is inbuilt, right? There is another method called what, the unknown method. Is it unknown? No, it is called the default. Sorry. So let me just quit. It's called the default. That is the default is like you see when you're writing a what um this statement, switch statements, right? And then the default is like after everything fails, just fall back into what into this flow, right? So you can write a default method, right, called the default, right? And that is what you are going to what you are going to use to check in case a wrong command has been entered. So let's do that. I've even forgotten how that one works. Is it just default or do default? Let's try and see. All right. Okay. That is the power of VS Code. It's just default. Let me get rid of this. Forget about this. And then let's get this right. So the default is basically like if a command is not known to the console, or if it does not know a command, it just kind of handles it. So we can write something like we can print something here, making conscious efforts not to use printf. Okay, and then we just tell the user something like unknown what unknown command, and then we tell them that what this is the command you something like entered, and then that one is what, remember that what the user's input is what is line, right? So we put that here. Okay, so I'm using the f um the formatting string, right? Is it formatted or formatting? I've forgotten. Long since I read. So when we do this, right, this is when the user enters a command that we are not aware of, and I want to tell them that what it is an unknown command. Okay, so let's see if that one too works. Let's run our program and let's say greet. That one works fine, and then we say something like create, right? And then it says unknown command create. I don't know why it's giving me unknown syntax. Let's figure that out. Let's see. Okay, so let's get rid of this and then let's just print this, right? Hopefully that solves it. I think it was the VS Code that recommended that for me. I don't know why, but I didn't use that. So let's say create. All right, it says unknown command create. Okay, so let me fix this typo. So what I'm doing now is code overriding. This is not a method I created. It is a method that came with what? With a class, CMD class, and I've overwritten it. I'll explain that one to overwriting. You can overwrite the methods that come with it. So under normal circumstances, this is what the method does, right? It returns this, right? And then I've just kind of updated it to something else, right? So that is what it means to what overwrite a method. I think you already know that because when you are doing classes, you know that. So I think someone dropped the question. Is anyone having any question before we move on? So basically, this is our console. Before we move on, is anyone having any question? This line, okay. So that is the user's input. Okay, that is the user's input. As you can see on line 16, we have what? We have defined default, and then we have actually used the self, is the conversion, that is the command itself, right? And then we pass the line as a parameter, right? So the line it there is like what we are taking from the user, the input of the user. That is why when we printed unknown command and then we place line here, it replaces with the user's command. Let's do the C. When we are running our program, and we use something like create, and then create is not a known command. So when we pressed enter, it said unknown command what create. And as you can see here, the line here is what is just a parameter, right? That is holding what this are what our inputs. So along the line, we'll be making use of the line. So I hope this at least explains to you, right? Yes. So this is just like you saying when you use get line. Hello? Okay. So you see that when we were creating the shell, right? We took the input from the user, right? So if this is in shell, then this is the input, right? We use the get line. This is the input. So the line is the user's input. If you print it out, you're able to to get what the user what kind of give as a command, right? So I mean here we can I can demonstrate it here with this. We can print it for you to see, or we can just print line. Let's just print line. Why do I like using printf? So when we print line, then we go back to our code and then we do greet. We're expecting greet, right? Because that is the input we give to the console, right? So when we do greet, it's supposed to what? Supposed to, oh, okay, let me see. Why isn't it printing greet and just printing it? No line. I don't know. Let me work on that. Oh, okay. Okay. I'll explain that. I'll explain that later. I'll come back to that. I don't want to confuse you. I'll come back later. It's an argument. I'll explain that. Let me clear. So let's just understand that what it is there. It is the input from what from the user, and you will be able to to get access to it. Okay. So let's let Diana ask a question. Diana, right? You can ask your question. Oh, okay. Okay. So yes. So because of time, I have to cut you. So I understand what you are trying to ask. Okay. So the do greet is what? It is like a method you yourself is defined. It's not inbuilt. And then what makes the program know that what it is a method you are defining is the fact that you started with what with a do. So when you say do greet, right? It knows that what the greet is what is a method you yourself is naming, and then you are telling that whenever I enter greet, this is what I want you to do. Let's change it to something like welcome, okay? And then whenever we do this, and then we enter welcome, right? It does the hello word. It does what you want to do. So it's just a naming convention you want to give to it, and then I'm deciding to use greet, right? But then with the default ones or the inbuilt ones, you don't have to use do here. As you can see here, with the default here, we did not use what? We did not use do, right? Because it is already what an inbuilt method that comes with its own what functionality. Just that we have overwritten it. But if it is not an inbuilt and you want to what, write it yourself and then define it, you want to create your own method in the class, just start with what do underscore. Does that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. Any other question? Then I move on to explaining the line and what it does. Okay. Yes, it's a keyword that comes with something like that. Conversion. I've forgotten. It has a name they use, but we all forget, right? I have to search on that and then I'll tell you. It's just like yes, it's just like a keyword you have to use for the program to know that you are coming to define your own what method, right? So thank you very much. So let's say we want to pass what? We want to pass an argument, just like the question asks. What we can do is okay, what the line there is in, we can change this, right? And then let's say we can give it a name, and let's say it is called person. It is an argument we are passing to what? To the method called person instead of line, right? And then what we want to do is okay, in that whenever someone, let me change this back to greet, right? So that it makes more sense, right? So whenever we pass what? An argument to what? To this greet, right? So the reason why the first one give me an empty line is because I have not passed any argument to it, right? So what is happening here is that okay, when we pass an argument to what? We want to pass an argument to the method, right? Let's say you want to greet a person. So this is where we what? You kind of, I don't know, put it there, right? That is the argument. That is, how do I say? if you are dealing with C program, you want to say it's what is this the argument one or the second argument, and the argument of index one or the second argument. Let me just write the code for you to understand here. So see, this is the command itself, and this is the argument you are passing to that command, right? And we say that it is called what? It is person. So let's say I want to do this. We shouldn't just print hello world. We should just print hello plus what? Plus the person's name. So we can do this, and then we can say greet. So we say hi and hello, and then we can say person, right? That means we're expecting what? A second argument to be passed to it. So let me fix this so that we don't get any error. Okay, I think it's good to go. So we want to receive something like hello person, right? That is it. So you can change it to anyone you want, but I think for the Airbnb, it's not necessary, right? You just have to. It's a lot. I'll explain that. So when we do this, it basically says hello without a person, right? But then when we do greet and then we pass maybe a name to it, like I don't know, maybe Chris, and then it says what? Hello, Chris. So that is if you know you are going to pass an argument to the method or the command you are going to be using, then just what? Just do that here, right? I mean, this code is not very what's the name, robust enough, right? Let me do something about it. We can say that, okay, if person, that is if a person's name was passed to it, they want to do this, right? Want to print the person's name. But if the person's name was not what passed to it, if no argument was received, please try to take note of this. You will make very good use of it in what? In building up the console, right? If we want to say if person, that is if an argument was passed to it, we will print hello plus what? Plus the argument or the parameter, right? But else we just want to print hi, basically something like that. So let's clear and let's see if it works as it's supposed to. So let's pass the greet without passing any argument to it. It says hi. But then if you pass greet and then we want to say Chris, it just says hello Chris, basically something like that, right? I don't know if you guys are following. So that is what the line there was doing. I mean, you can replace it to line if you want, but I just wanted to use person so that you know that the naming convention what makes sense, and then we'll make here line, right? And then it will still work fine as it's supposed to. So I hope that answers your question. Though you said it did the first time, I mean, you will still need it, right? It does the same thing as you wanted it to do. And then let's clear here. So that is basically what one thing about what the grid. And also ALS would want you to do something. It is called what? It is called the help, right? Whenever someone new comes to your console and they have no idea how it is working, you should be able to display a help menu for them to know what each function is doing, and then each method is doing or each command is doing, and then or the commands available, right? So sorry about that, guys. So the first one is called you can use doc test, right? You can use doc test to display the help, right? So let's say we want to give a help menu or display a help for the function for the method called greet or the command called what greet. This is what you are going to do. We already know you've used doc test for unit and for testing your codes, right? But one thing maybe you didn't know is that you can use it for to do this in what? In your console, right? So I have my doc test and I want to say that what? Just greet. Something like this, right? Greet the or greet the name and then let's say person, right? I mean you can pass person to it. So let's see how this one works. I hope I'm not confused and I've not lost track. Okay, let's see. Let's run this code and see. Right. So you can see what I did was what I just brought a doc test here and I just play some tests here. But let's see how the magic that works or the magic that what comes with it. So when you do something like help and then you enter help, it gives you what? Documented commands, right? The help is inbuilt. You don't have to define it here. It already comes with the CMD model, right? So when I entered help, it says what? Documented commands, and then I've documented what greet. See, I've documented greet on line 10. So it just kind of says what? The greet is documented. So I come here and I document this too, and I said quits or exit, oh, true, exit, exit the console gracefully, right? That's what I want to do. I want to exit the console gracefully, right? So when I go back and then compile my program again, let me clear. Did I say compile? It's not easy. It's not easy working with C, right? It kind of adds the EOF tool to the documented commands, right? And now what happens is that when you want help on grids, we just do this. And then it says what? It tells us what the grid does. It grids the name and then you add a person to it, right? So when you say help and then you say it says it exits what? It exits the console gracefully, right? So that is one thing that is required of you to also do. You must make sure that what you must document your codes with this, right? And then this is not actually ideal. Let me show you another thing, right? We have, I've forgotten I've not implemented the exit, right? We have something called the live help, right? The live help is you actually writing the help yourself. So that it gives you a better way of you trying to format it, make it more appealing to the user, right? It's called a live help. Let me show how you do that. So let's say you want to be able to display help for grids. Instead of using the doc test, we can come here and we can define a method called what? Called help grids. As someone said, the help there is to is what? It's a keyword that identifies whatever you are passing to it at what, as you defining what the help for it, right? And then this one only takes self. True or false? I think so. Yes, it only takes self, right? Because you are not going to be receiving anything from the user, right? You are just defining what this for this, right? So help greet, and then you can just document it any way you want. You can just let's say whenever the person enters help greet, you want to print something like how it works, right? Forgive me to do this. We can do this. You can bring a new line here. I've forgotten the name for this, but I like doing it a lot. We just join the string. Forgive me. Let's do this. We just join, right? Think this one works fine, right? And then we define the string we want to join to it. We type it. Let's see, you want to do, no, this is not how you do it. Forgive me. Want to do, and then we come here and then we say something like, right, it greets person, with person here, and then we come here and then not forgetting my comma, right? This is just time. Let's say greet person, and then we can say something like greet, or we can just do this. We can just say greet person, right? I think this is fine. This works fine. Why am I having errors? What am I missing? Let's see. Okay, right. So just we are just greeting the person. This is help, or you can print anything we want it. This is you can make it any way you want. You can just as at least the person must have an idea of what you are trying to say, right? So let's run this and let's do help greet, and then let's see greet person, right? So our string comes here as what? As greet person. And as you can see, it totally ignored what? The doc test you placed here, and then it's rather what? It's rather use this. And then when you click, you enter help, it shows you that what the greet is also documented, right? So that is the live help. I think ALS will make us use what? The live help in place of what? The doc test help. But this is just how the CMD model works. So I think we have done a lot. I think I would have to skip some things, but I don't know. Let me see. Overwriting methods, right? Is anyone having any question from this? We need to be very fast. Let me see the time. Okay. Is anyone having any question from this before we move on? Okay. Let me see. All right. No questions. Okay, Sheldon, ask your question. This, that is a new line. I'm joining the new line with this string. I'm just joining two strings. When the person enters help, greet, and then I'm just joining the new line with what? With a greet person, basically something like that. Oh, I think I get your question. I think the new line is rather back backslash instead of forward slash, right? Yes, thank you very much. I think it's backslash instead of forward slash, basically. Yes, so thank you very much for pointing that out, Diana. Thank you very much. Right? Any questions? Any other questions? I didn't. It's not easy. Okay, so I guess we can move on. I was not even paying attention to hear that new line is not even recognized security. Just kind of went on to ignore it. So right. So let's move on to the next thing I want us to talk about is the inbuilt functions and then what how to be able to what overwrite them. Okay. So I think I wrote them here. I mean, it's a lot. I didn't write it. So what I want you to do is, okay, I want you to let's see. So yes, so there are a lot of inbuilt functions that inbuilt methods you can use in your own, like you can use for like your own benefits, right? Um, there are a lot of them, right? I can't list all of them. Let me just touch on one, and then let me just explain it to you, right? So let's say if the user what, if the user clicks on what, you see normally when the user presses enter here in our console, you just give them a new line. Maybe you don't want it to give it a new line, you want it to print something on the screen or something. I don't know, however you want it to. So we can actually call for what? For the inbuilt method responsible for that and what kind of overwrite it. I think as of now, you understand what it means to overwrite. Because it's an inbuilt, we are not adding what? Do, right? Forget about all of this. So this is how the inbuilt works, right? It just returns an empty line, but we can override it. We can override it and then write our own what? Our own implementation from. You can do something like whenever there is a you can just tell them something like you have entered um a new line, something like that, basically, right? An empty line, sorry. So this is just one of them and how to what to override. I think everyone here now knows how to override what a method. And then let's see. Um okay, so as you can see, it just instead of just printing a new line, it is now what? It is now how do I say? It is printing this onto the screen. So we have overridden it and then we have given it our own implementation, right? And then there are a lot. We have the pre-loop, we have the post-loop. ALS actually gives you resources on that, so you don't have to worry. I think I searched it today. There is a resources they gave. I think Python model of the week, and then it had something. It had a little mistake, and then let me see. I think I went there. Python model of the week. I'm not allowed to go to. Okay, so this is it. Okay, right. So the mistake is that with the resources they will give you, here is what version 2, right? This is it. You just have to go into your URL and then what enter 3 here so that you get the latest version, Python version 3 for Python version 10. Then it goes on a long way, right? It's a lot. I mean, it also has auto completion, something like that, right? You can run short commands and then it's a lot. So when you are free or before you even start with the console, you can, or whenever you need a documentation, you just come to what this site and it is provided in what in your resources. So let's just move on with this. I think I missed something too, and then it's required for you to do, right? When the user enters quit, or when you enter quit, you are supposed to exit the program. So let's do this, and then let's say, oh, let's do this, and let's say return, right? Return true. It just works like um the default, right? Let's see if that one also works fine for us. Let's see. Okay, so obviously I'm not doing something right. What is wrong with my quit? Do quit self line. Oh, okay. Since it's not an inbuilt, it does not work that way. And then what do? I return true. Okay, let's see. Clear. And then we want to quit. Okay, as you can see, it quits what? It quits our console. So if you have this working, then you don't have to worry about anything else. I mean, you have to worry about a lot of things because you must be able to how do I say, integrate this with a base model you are going to what you are going to be creating. Okay, but I think for now this is enough, right? I mean, you are also required to write a def um help for the quit, and then you give it what you tell what it does, right? And then let me do that, and then let me just kind of say you want to print that quit the console, something like that, right? Right. You want to create a console. Then that also helps. And then let me see if I'm not missing anything. Right. So basically, if you understand this, then we can move on to see how we are going to be what? We are going to be implementing the create, the read, and then update, and then the destroy. Right. I think I missed something. You see, when we run the program, this comes right. When you run the program, you see this CMD here, right? So this is the default prompt, right? You can actually override that. You can come here and then you can just define your own prompt, right? You can say prompt is equal to maybe something like shell, right? Or since it's a console, you can say console. Yeah, I think I almost missed that. Or well, something like that. This works fine, right? And then so the prompt there is you overriding the default prompt that is given to you. As you can see, it has given me what? A new prompt, right? Something like that. So you can put anything you want there. It can be show, it can be just this max. I think ALS gave you one, the HBNB. You need to follow that one and then you just override it, okay? So yeah, basically you can override it to anything you want. Okay. So let me see if I'm missing something else. Uh, I think that is all. I think that is all. So this is how your CMD model works. Basically, that is how it functions, right? So let's try and implement, as you now know how it works, let's try and implement what create read and update and destroy what method inside. Right. So any question before I go to that, any question? Okay, of course. Yeah, hello, we can hear you. Oh, I can hear you. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So that one is basically okay. See, we have defined a class called command. You know that already, obviously. And then what we have done here is that, okay, if it is a main program, then we want to be caught in a loop. That is the ideology. So this thing here, right, this command loop you see here is a method that comes with what? The CMD model that you use to loop your console. You see, when we're building the shell, or let's say when you do this, right, when you enter a command, it does not end. It gives you another what? Prompt to enter another command, meaning that what? It is in a loop until a certain condition is met. Like when you do something like quit, and then it ends, right? So this is what? This is the reason for that. I've never gotten rid of it, but I don't think when we get rid of it, it's going to work as we want it to. So without it, yes, you're obviously going to get an error, or let me see, is it because of this? Expecting an indentation. All right. So we can just pass. You can just pass and then do nothing there. I want to see what happens when you. All right, as you can see, we did not get our loop, right? The program did not even just run or something. Or like, okay, let me see. I shouldn't do pass. I want to see what happens when we get rid of that. So this is not a main program. All right, so yes, so that is it is responsible for what? For the loop that the constant loop the user is what is in. Wow, I almost made a mistake. So we can comment it and say that what to catch the user in a loop. Okay, so I think that's the magic. Are you answered? Where is the meeting? Oh, um, a moment. Yes, we can hear you. Oh, of course, definitely. I actually thought he was asking about the line 41. That is why. Sorry about that. Hello, Cyprin. Hello, is he still here? Okay, okay. let me do this. The yes, I'll be using it to explain the CRUD. So let's just call it another console, right? So thank you very much. Thank you very much. God really bless you. I don't think you'll be needing let me import this so that when I push it, no one has any problem with that. Okay. I don't think we'll be needing these codes again. I'll just push it to the repository I'm working in. You can go check it out, right? So I just want to let me see the time. So hopefully I can use about 30 minutes to explain the CRUD. I wanted to explain the UID and then the time, the date time, right? But because of time, let me just go through it, right? So see, everything we've done so far has been what? Us trying to explore how the CMD model works. Okay. Um, please can you mute yourself? There is a bit of noise at the background, right? Okay. So see, I want us to create a class, okay? And then we call the class, let's say something like it's a console, but we want to use it to explain. So let's say something like user uh, let's just say, how should I even call it? Come to me, come to me. Let me call it, we are going to do it. So let me just call it user management. And it's a lot, but either way, I think it's not good to name a class like this. Let me change the conversion. Let me do this, right? User management. So let's say this is it, right? We are going to build a mini, how do I say, console that creates, updates, reads, and then destroys, right? And then you understand how what it works with what it works with the data, right? So this is, we are trying to recreate a console, but this time we are going to be using it to create, update, and then um yeah, destroy and then read, right? So we have to first import our model here, and then we do this cmd dot, as it has been explained to us. So this is what this is our class is inheriting from what, from the base class of what, of the cmd model. Okay, so it is a class in what, in the model, and then we are just kind of inheriting from it, right? The user management class is inheriting from it. Okay, so now what we'll do is, let's just say a simple, let's the document say a simple CRUD command, right? Oh, I did not document it well. Let me get rid of this, and then let me come here, right? So I think with this code, you can actually make adjustment to it to suit what ALS, what I mean. I don't know, right? So simple code command for processing, or for managing users, right? That is the right word to use, for managing users, right? So this is what you have, as you already know. See, we have to define a method with what, with a do, no, because before that, all right. But let me just do, so do, we have to define do and then create. All right, so let's go with the flow. This, so we can still maintain this as line, no problem, no biggie, right? And then, so what we've done is, right, we've created a method, right, in the cmd model. And then what we want to do is, okay, we want to be able to, whenever this method is called, we want to be able to create a new user. And see, in the building of what, the console in what, in the Airbnb, right? What you are going to be using the UID is for is, right, you are going to be giving every user what, their unique ID, right? And then you are being, I mean, we all know the use of for the ID, right? It's for just for unique identification, right? That is the UUID model. That is what it's used for. Right? Whenever we create a new user, it just kind of, whenever let's say in the base model, when we create an instance of what, of the base model, it just gives it what, an ID it can do it. But since I have not talked about that, I'm going to avoid that, and we are going to be using what, random numbers to what, for their ID. So when we create a first user, we are going to give them, like, let's say the first user, we are going to give them an ID of what, of one, right? That way it makes it easy that you're able to understand how the what, the create, the read, update, and then the delete is used in what, in the CMD model, right? So let's say, see, what we want to do is, okay, we want to let me do this. let me see. What we want to do is, right, we want it to be like a dictionary that contains the user's ID and then the user's name. Just that. I mean, that's what you're going to work with. That now, just understand that, okay? So first of all, we are going to create an empty what? An empty dictionary, right? An empty dictionary. I don't even know, but dictionary is basically like a key. Is a pair, right? Like key and value pair, right? The key is stored here, and then the pair basically just like what I was trying to do with what the string. So see, what we can do is wow, I really need to go back to my Python. So see, we can create a constructor, right? The self here, right? We can define it here. We can initialize it here, and then we say self init, okay, and then we pass the self. What this basically is doing is that, okay, it is a constructor method of the class, right? It is automatically called when an instance of the class is created. So whenever you create an instance of this R class, it is what it is called, right? And then what we want you to do is that, okay, what we want you to do is we want it to um want it to create a user. Let's define let's just say users, right? Let's just say users. So this users is what? It's going to be the dictionary. We are going to store the ID and then the user's name inside. So let's make it an empty dictionary here for now, right? I think I'm missing a lot of things here, but hopefully I'll come back and attend to it in case. I think I've defined my, how do I even call it? Oh, okay. So this is the dictionary to store the users. Let me say dictionary to store users. As you can see now, it is an empty dictionary. There is nothing here. It is just what a trailing white space or nothing. It's absolutely nothing, right? And then we've done that. So this is where whenever we create a method or whenever we create an instance, sorry, this method should be called, and then it should give us an empty dictionary. Yes, I think that will work fine, right? So I'm even supposed to have the super user constructor, but I'll come back to it, right? So let's say this is our create method, right? What we want to do is that, okay, we will take the user's name and then their ID. Forgive me, I said we are not dealing with the UUID. I mean, we could have done it in what here that it automatically what creates and then attaches itself to the user, but because I have not talked about it, I would just want us to use numbers to what for our ID. So we are expecting to what we are expecting two arguments in addition to what our command. So this is how we are going to write. So let's say when the user comes in then does the create, we expect the user to give us a number that is their ID and then their name, like let's say John Doe or let's say John first name, right? So let's say John, right? So create one John. So this is the ID and then this is what we already know how to work with this. That is what we've done here. So do create. Sorry if I'm trying to rush because of time. So see, let me comment it so that if I push it, you'll be able to understand. We want to create a new user, right? And then we can give them a format that they can follow. Right? We can say something like um um we can I want you to use it. We can use this as a help, right? So I don't want to make mistakes, right? We can say that the sentence the person is supposed to follow, right? The syntax the person is supposed to follow is that, I mean, we could have ignored it, but I want you to understand it, right? Is that they are supposed to use the command create, and then they are supposed to provide a digit, okay? And then after the digit, they are supposed to give us their name or a string, basically anything like that. So we will use this for our help. We are using the doctor's help, right? So when the user enters help, this is what is supposed to be displayed for them in case they get it wrong. And then we will try and bring this back again. No worries. See, so this is what we are going to do. We are going to take the user's input, which is the line, right? So let's take the user's input here, the line, right? And then we are going to what? We are going to split it, right? So we are taking this one, we are taking this, right? Remember the line is what? The line does not involve the first what? The first input. It only deals with what? The argument. That is the second that is of index 1 and of index 2, right? So we are going to split this, right? Because we want to be able to get it in the form of a dictionary. That is what you'll be doing with the console. You must get it in the form of a dictionary. We want the name, we want the one to be what? The key, and then the John to be what? The pair. So, sorry, the value. So we are going to split it, okay? And then we are going to give it to, let's call it arguments, right? So we have split it. When we print arguments, you are supposed to get what? Our one John, right? Hopefully this works fine. Let me get my indentation correct. So hopefully this works fine. So see, we can check for a condition. Maybe the user will enter, maybe the user, I don't know. I mean, there are lots of, users are the most efficient back finders, right? A user can just enter, I don't know, maybe create John 1 and then enter anything like this, right? And maybe goes on to just say Z, but that's not what you want. You only want what? The first two, right? So we can put in a condition to check that, okay, if the act that we have taken, right, is equal to, I think this is wrong. It's not for me. It's not good for me to say equal to, right? We just want to say if the length of it, right? If the length of this ask we have received is equal to 2, only then should this what? This code run, right? And what we want to do is, okay, we want to be able to get the key in a different variable and then the value also in a different variable. That is, we want to, because we want to keep track of the one, that being the ID, and then the name, right? So this create, right, is just working like, I want it to work as efficient as it can. So we can say if the length is equal to 2, that is if the length the person provided for us. We can check that out and then we print something like this. Let's print something like this, right? The length is what? Is valid. But please, you are not going to be doing this simple thing in what? In your Airbnb. You are going to make use of what? Regular expressions. It's best for you to keep what? For you to capture the user's input easily. Right? So those who did not pay much attention to regular expression or registers, just go back to it and then make good use of it. Or else we can just say that what? The user's what? We can just tell them that what? The the input is not what? Is not valid, right? We can say the input, we'll update it, but I just want to make sure it's working. The input is not valid, right? Or invalid input. So the input is valid. Just to make sure that what we are getting, what the true, like our condition is working as supposed to. Now let's make use of what? Of our Python magic what? Idiom. So you want to say if and I think it has efficiently been explained to us, right? So we understand what is happening here. It's not assignment, it's equal to. I used to make that mistake a lot. And then it's what? But how I used to what? Recognize, like, if it is the main program, right? That is what I used to just kind of remember it. If you are working with the main program, it's just best you put it here. And then you just want to what? Call for your user management. And that is when we what? We import. Also, we could have done something like this. I'm coming. We could have done something like this. We could have only imported, right? Let's pass our loop to it. We could have only imported. It actually came to me when our brother was explaining. We could have only imported when we what? We use this what? Condition. That also works fine, right? You could have done something like this, and then that also works fine. But I think that confuses most people. So just kind of keep it up there. So you can always look up there and then what? Kind of just see it. Okay. So this statement actually defines the whole program though. So see, what we have done here is, okay, we are taking, am I missing something? We are taking the user's input and we are storing it in the form of a dictionary. But this time we are just checking if it's valid. So let's try something. Let's see. Let me clear the screen. Oh, okay. Trace back. Did you mean complete user management? Oh, what did I do here? Guys, what is wrong? Let me read. If self use raw. Oh, yes, 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 yes. If self use raw input and self complete attribute user management. Yes, please, come again. What were you saying? Hello, someone was saying something. Please help us. I think you had an idea, so please help us. Let's see. Come again. I didn't get that. Okay. So guys, can we move on? Let me figure out the rest. Let me figure out this one. So okay, so we need to call what? The superclass what? Constructor. This superclass we have what? We have imported it here. We need to have, I mean, that even shouldn't be the case, right? But well, let's see. I think that is the only thing I missed. And if that is not what, if that is not the issue, we would have to, if self raw input, this is it, raw input. And then what is happening? User management. Okay, sure. Thank you very much. So let's try this the super class what. This is what this is for our class. This constructor does not belong to the class we're inheriting from. I don't know why, but as you said, let's try. So see, what we can do here is where we can say that the supermodel, okay, the supermodel. I mean, some of you already know what this does, right? I have even forgotten. It's not easy. I really need to go back to Python. I think this is complete key. Okay, I think this does it complete key, and then yes, I've given it the constructor. Now let's see. Okay, great. Now let's change the prompt to, and let's make the prompt something like this. Let's make it um yeah, shell. Let's use our old-fashioned shell prompt, something like this, right? So yes, basically, right? Now let's clear and let's do this. Right. So see, let's create a user and now let's give it what the two arguments as expecting. Let's say one, and then we give it what? We give it John. And then it says the input is valid, right? Now when we go on and then we do something like this, we give it more than that, as some abnormal users will do, it says what the input is invalid, right? So it means our condition is working as it's supposed to work. And then as I said, please try and make use of what regular expressions here. That is the best way to do it, right? So I think along the way, maybe if you have other sections, I want to use just 2 days to explain everything. If you have other sections, I'll be able to explain to you how you would use regular expressions to do that, right? So see, we now have to come back to the condition. Basically, that is not what we want. We want to, if the user gives us the input, we want to store it in what? In the dictionary. And then we want to what? Yes, we want to basically store it in a dictionary, right? So this is what we are going to do. This args we have, right? The args we have, we are going to divide it into two. We are going to divide it into digits and then what? And then let's say name, right? So we will do something like this, and then we say what? We are just unpacking it, right? We are just unpacking the args into digits and name. So let me just say digits. So the one goes to digits, and then the John comes to name. So I think this works fine. And then now we have to store it in what? In a dictionary. So let's call for what? Let's call for our dictionary, self users. And then we want to say that, okay, put the digits in what? In the key, and then the value, make it what? Make it name, right? I think this works fine. And then after that, you can definitely print it for the user to see that what created user, something like that, or user created. So we can say that what user created. Yes, and then at the end we want to what? To give them something like an update of what they've done, right? So we can print the ID for them to see, and we can say ID is what? The ID is, this is the user's ID, and then we put here digit, right? Digit. Thank you very much about that. And they want to say that, okay, the name, and then the user's name is what? Is, you'll be surprised how this turns out beautifully. And then that is basically but the Airbnb is not going to be as simple as this. I'm not lying to you. We want to give out the name. right? We want to pass the name here. So we are using what? Um, we are using the substitution. Guys, hey, I've forgotten the name, please. No man can stress me. So if this happens, this is what you want to do. Now let's test it, right? We'll come back to the else statement and we'll update it too, right? So let's do this. And I want to say create user one and then John, right? You see, it's user created, right? It gives you the ID to be one and then the name to be John. So you have been able to create what? You have been able to define a method that works like the create that creates what a user in our database, not in our database, but to the screen. So what happens is that after you are done with this, normally you use what the JSON. I've not taught JSON, so we'll do that one tomorrow. You store it in what? You serialize it and then into a JSON string. I mean, don't forget the conversion we were talking about here, right? The conversion, the instance into dictionary and then into a JSON string, right? So now it's instance into what? A dictionary. So so after we are done with this, maybe if the user does anything, like maybe if they do this, then they do this. I mean, for now we can just say invalid input, right? But no anonymous sequence, we are supposed to give them what? We are supposed to tell them how it works. So we can just copy this. We can just copy this format and tell the user that what this is how we are expecting you to pass what the argument, instead of just saying invalid input. Please, if you are not talking, mute yourself. So we can just do this and then we pass here. Let me see if this one works. Invalid in, invalid input. Then we say user invalid input. Then we tell them how to use it, right? Syntax create, then digit. I even forgot one. All right. So I think this works fine. I mean, and even dumb users will figure it out. So let's just maybe users don't know syntax. So let's just see. But then it's the backend. So maybe the backend. They are smart people, aren't they? So let's just see create and then something like this. Right. It says user. Wait, what? How? Oh, okay. I pass on and then a, right? Most our code is not checking if it is a digit. It just gives it passes it, right? So you can put that in place. So let's say it's just checking for three arguments, right? It says it throws the or when the user passes three arguments, right? So let's say create John and then you make here two, you make here John and then you make here Mary, right? It just says ID is John. Name is, I mean, there is no check. We can just convert it, right? Into what? Into an integer with a int type. We can just convert it, but figure that out. You are smart, I know. So see, our create method is what? Is working as supposed to, right? If the user enters more than three arguments, it throws them what? The error. So right now we've been able to what? To create. Now let me see if there is something that we can do. So let's try and come back here and then let's get out our end of file. We need our end of file, remember, so that we can be able to. And then we need our empty line and our default. I mean, do all of them inside. Don't leave them out. You need them here so that you can be exiting and then, yes, you have free time. But I think if I add it to make it too cumbersome, so let me just leave that. But just know that what they are supposed to be there. Because you should be able to create. Someone should be able to ask for help. Someone, basically, something like that, right? Let me see the document, if the documented help worked. Yes, it worked, right? So when you say help, create, create a new user. So I think this one works fine. I always forget I've not implemented a ZZ function. So see, so this is what? This creates a user in what? In a dictionary, right? It creates a user. And then what if someone comes and then the person wants to read all the users in what? Or you want to read all the users you've stored in the database, right? That is when you have to define what the function, any question with our create method. Can we move on? Oh, come on. Self, I'm trying to beat time here. Forgive me for that. At least you need to get a working console before you start your project. Yes, ALS doesn't give you any instruction. They just expect that you get your console working before you start the project. So let's get it done before I at least move on. If you don't understand anything, I mean, from the passing of the input, you said, oh no, no, it is part of the project, but they don't tell you how you are going to do it. Okay, they just tell you the how. They just give you the output. This is what we're expecting, right? And then they expect you to be able to do this, right? But they don't tell you how you're supposed to go about it. So you go there, you see a console, and then the console has create help basically, but they are not going to help you how to implement that. So I think from here you should be able to at least implement this before, implement this basic structure. I think everything I've done here with this one part in particular is what is required of you, right? And then this is me just using to explain. It's also required of you, but I'm using it to explain. You will need it. So let's just get into it. Let's say we want to read what but don't be don't be don't be scared, don't be frightened. It's a lot. The Airbnb project is a lot, but you can. I did it myself though. It took about 5 days or something. So and I was very fast with it. So if you guys are two, someone can handle the testing, and then one handles what the implementation. The testing it's also a lot, though it does not really carry much mark. So I just kind of ignored it. At the end of the day, I ran back to it again. So we want to read and then read and then display um all users. All the users you've created, you want to be able to to be able to display them. That is when you need the what? The read. Let's see how this would be a very simple method, okay? This would be a very simple method. We just have to to display, or you just have to print, right? So we will print something like this, and we say list of users, right? And then after we do this, let's just this is just to make sure that what the person is seeing what they want. So this is what we are going to do next. We are going to use a for loop to to kind of iterate through our dictionary through using what our keys and then the values. So in order for you to access the elements of a dictionary, you need a for loop because it's a lot. The users, let's say we created about 5 users, right? So you want to say for digits, right? And then name. That is what we want. For digit and name. Where are we getting it from? In what? In our self users. In our self users, that is the dictionary we created, right? And then remember you need items because it's a dictionary what? It's a dictionary you are getting it from, right? And then you do this, right? Now let's print our users with their ID one by one. Why do I like using printf? Using the what? The f string. And I was actually saying, so you say the ID, we first give them the user's ID for them to see that what this is the user's ID. So we say digits, since that is what that's the digit we are getting from the dictionary. We say digits, and then we can do something like and yes, digit, or let's say, should I say digit or and name, right? I think that way it works fine. Name, and then we say that this is the name. Is it name? Okay. All right. So this is very simple, right? It's more into than that, but for now, it's just very simple. So we are reading what the users we've created in what in our dictionary. So let's create a user. Let's create with the ID. Let's give him the name John, right? Right, and then let's create another user. Let me use my name, 2, and then we give him the name of Kobe, right? Then we can create another user, okay? And then what other name do they use in programming? Mary, right? Mary Doe. Okay. So, right. Now we want to what? We want to read all what? We want to read the users we have. So we just enter read, and then we have what? The list of our users. It says it gives us the ID, and then it gives us what their name. Right. So now our method is working. Let me make this like this. I think our method is working what? Is working as it's supposed to. It gives us our ID and then what? Our name. So this is it. So right now, you've been able to create users, you're able to read or display the users. You want to be able to update the user. Let's say maybe if I want to change, let's say I realize that there is a typo in Mary. Maybe it's supposed to be Marri, right? And then I want to update it. Currently, when I do updates to give me an unknown syntax, because I'm not handling default, and then I have not handled the update. So you should be able to update the user. Um, Mind you, ALS does not use the CRUD. It's a different name. I mean, it's create, show, destroy, but it's basically the same idea, right? It just follows the CRUD principle, right? So at this point, any question before we move on to the update and then the destroy, then we will be done for today. Any question? Any question? Hopefully, please do fine, right? If you are confused, ask a question, right? So let's say do update, right? We want to update, let me be fast about it, and then we want to align, right? So you want to say, oh, right, I forgot my column, right? We want to say that what with the update, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to update our dictionary, right? With our updates. So when the user when the user, let's just say the user enters update, right? We should be able to update their details. So we want to say this one update users name, and then yes, we can give it the same syntax. Let's just go and copy and paste our favorite two, right? So copy. This is for our help whenever someone comes to enter help. Now let's try and get the logic for updating. It's very how do I say? I don't want to say difficult because it's not, but you need to pay attention, you need to pay details to it, right? The logic you can use to update the users in the dictionary. So this is what we can do, okay? We will take the users um input again, and then we will use this same splitting, means of splitting, right? So this is what you are going to do. um yes, I think that one will work fine. So let's just get the line, and we say what we want to split the line, okay? We want to split the line, and then we give it what ask, the same way we did in the creating. And after we split it, we want to check, oh sorry, we want to check, right, if we got the length of arc to be what, to be 2 before we do anything else. Okay, so if it is 2, now we have to what, unpack it. Wait, I hope I don't get, we have to unpack it, right? Yes, into what, into digits and names. So let's do that. So let's say digits and then name, right? And then we say ask, right? So what we are doing is we are unpacking what the arguments we have received. We splitted, first of all, we splitted the input from the user into what, and we splitted it what, like it's just like how you say tokenization, you are just tokenizing it, right? So after splitting it, we put it into a variable called what, ask. Just we labeled it ask, right? Just, and then after that we have to unpack. That means we have to say what, the first variable should take the first string we got, and then the second should also take the second string what we got. That is what we have basically done. I feel like I should explain it so that no one gets confused. And then after unpacking, right, we can write a condition. We can say that, okay, if the digits that we have received is in what, is in the digits we have, right, then we what, we update it. Does it make sense? If the digits we have received is in what, is in, if not, if it is not inside, then we don't need to update it. We can just simply just create a new one for them. But if it is inside, right, if it is in, or we can just ignore, we should just print that the name does not exist, or the ID you want to access does not exist. But if what, so we can put a condition, we say if the digits we have gotten is in our dictionary. So if the digit in what, in if digit okay, in um in the dictionary. The dictionary is what self uses, the empty dictionary, right? Then this is what we want to do, right? So if the digits in the dictionary, they want to just update it again, we can just copy this. We just want to create it again. So right now we are putting a different what? A different digit, and we are putting this digit and the name you got, right, into our dictionary, right? So we are just kind of replacing whatever that is in it. Then we just let's print this again. But this time we instead of saying you created, we just say updated, right? So we just say update user updated. So we'll be requiring the person's what ID, right? To be what? To be able to what? Update it. I mean, we can also write another one for name, but I think the ID works fine for now, right? So if we don't find the ID, then we want to say that what? Else we want to just print. I mean, you can call for the create method to create it new, but we just for now let's just print so that the user knows that what the user they want to create and the user they want to update is not does not exist. So we want to say no user with ID, right? Now how do we get our ID? Or let's say no user found with ID. How do we get our ID? Just by what? By accessing it, right? You say digit, right? So this is us updating the user was by the ID. That you will be doing that in the Airbnb because you'll be updating the user by what their user ID, right? So this statement works fine. Now we use if here, so we need another else, right? That is if the user does not give us what this expected arguments. We just want to tell them how what they are supposed to what use it. So with that one, we can just get our create and then we make changes and rather say that what invalid input. Use what? Use update. This time they will not use their name because we only said our digit. So use update digit, yes, plus name basically. With the name they want to update it with, basically. I mean, what the fuck was I thinking? So this works fine, I guess. All right, yes, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Diana. So we have our F and then no, not here, not here. Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, here rather. All right. So I think that works fine. Now we are just going to see what is happening is that okay, with this our code, immediately we we quit the program. We don't have access to the user's data again because we are not storing it in what in any file. So take note of that. Supposed to do that. I think we'll do that tomorrow if God permits. So I want us to do test if this update is working. First of all, let's create a user, right? And let's give him the name John, right? We've created John, right? And now let's create two, and then let's say Chris, small of course, and then let's create another user, and let's say Mary, right? Okay. Let's say Mark, okay? Oh, I didn't use a create word. Sorry, Mark. Let's say Mark. Okay. So now let's display all the users we have. Now when we read, we have what? We have ID1 to be John, ID2 to be Chris, and then ID3 to be what? To be Mark. Now let's test our update method. Let's say you want to update Mark back to what? Mary. So how do we use the update, right? Is update and then what? Oh, sorry, let me change that. It's update and then digit and what? Name. So when you enter help, update here, we can see, oh, yes, it's working as supposed to. I mean, you can also implement Clear. I think Clear is too is there, right? You can also implement that one too. So now let's update what? Let's update our third user back to what? We're the user with three, ID 3 into what? Into Mary, right? And now let's see. User update, ID 3, name Mary. And now let's read from what? From our database, hopefully, let's say database. And then as you can see, it updates what? Mark with what? With Mary successfully. So sorry, Mark, we didn't need you at this time. So let's end this. And now we have what? We have our create, our read, and then our update. I forgot that I was even supposed to be fast. So any question, and let's move to the delete or destroy. Any question? Any question? Right. So let's define what I said. I'll be fast and I'm always slow. Those of you who know me, you can see that I'm very slow with Python compared to C. I'm very slow with Python because I've not gotten time to revise or do anything about it. I mean, the taxes just get a lot, but I'll try to improve. With Python, I have to be very slow and then make sure that everything I'm writing is in place. I mean, I flow very fast with C. So let's say, in case we want to delete, or let's say we realize that, well, we don't even need Mary to. I mean, we didn't need Mary and Mark in the first place. So we just want to destroy Mary, right? So how are we going to go about that? I think with that one, you can use the del method. That is it a method? Is there a method? Yes. Is there a method? Do you have a method like yes? We can use del to delete the from the dictionary, right? So let's implement that. A very short code, right? So what we want to do is we want to delete the 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 user or a user by what? By their ID, right? If you notice something, I'm always making use of the ID and I'm ignoring the name because the ID is the most important. People can have the same name, but the IDs will never be the same, right? That is what the UUID is for unique IDs, and it's randomized and it's a lot. I mean, when you're using ChatGPT, even you see ID there on top of your URL, right? So that is the use of what UID. It generates a long list of what alphanumeric um identification number, not a number but identification, right? Unique identification. So see, we can give it a syntax, the same syntax here. Please, someone is not talking. You can mute yourself. Okay, so see, what can we do? We don't need, obviously, we need to iterate through our dictionary and then we check if the digit exists, the ID exists, sorry, and we delete that ID. Right? How are we going to go about that? So we can say if line, if the user's input, right? You can change this. Okay, I've said it already. If line in, no, if digits, or if line, right? If line in the dictionary, yes. If the user's what? ID in the dictionary, self users. Yes, yes. We can unpack it, but as I said here, we are deleting it by what? By the ID. The reason why we don't need the name and then the ID is that, okay, you can choose one of them. And okay, see, you can choose one of them. We don't need the name and the ID. Why? Because there can be a lot of Mary, right? So we don't need a name. We don't need your name for anything. Or the backend developer does not need the name. There can be a lot of Mary, there can be a lot of Kobe Sefa Solomon in the what? In the database. So it is the unique ID that makes us what? Know that what? This Mary is different from what? The other Mary. This Kobe is different from the other Kobe. So whenever you are deleting, you should rather make use of what? The ID, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yes. All right. Great. So we want to say thank you very much. So if line in what? In self users, I, as I said, the the Airbnb is not going to be like this, right? So we just want to delete the the dictionary, right? Users, and then what do we want to delete? We want to delete um okay. I think okay. Let's see. Want to delete the line. Is it the line you want to delete? Okay, sure. So hopefully this works. So what we are doing is right. We are using the key. We are deleting the key, and then in a dictionary, when we delete the key, it also deletes the name. Hopefully, I mean, yeah, that's how it works, right? And then we print something like after we delete it, we print deleted, right? Um, yes, this delete deletes. I'm contemplating, but let's see how the guy said. Let's see deleted or user deleted, right? User deleted, and then we say this is the ID what we deleted just to make sure, right? And then this time the ID is line, not digit. I forgot my F again. Okay, I forget a new line in my C codes and I forget my F in my Python when it comes to what the using of the print or printing something to the screen. So if we don't have the digit the person gave us, we want to print something like print, and then you want to say that okay, F no user found with ID, and then what the line. I mean, I think this works fine. Okay, so let's try it and see. I mean, we never know till we run it, right? So hopefully, let's see how uh destroy also works, right? So we have to run console. Let's create users. Let's create users. User with user ID 1, we create John, right? And then we create 2, we create Kobe, and then we create Mark again. Mark, welcome back. So we create Mark, and then let's see. Okay, now let's read or let's display. Okay, everything is in place. Now let's say you want to delete what? The user with ID 3, which is what? Mark. So hi Mark, bye Mark. So we say destroy what? User ID what? 3. Okay, user deleted ID 3, right? So we have deleted Mark from what? From the users. And now let's see. When we check our read, we have only what? 2 users, right? So that is what? That is the use of the what? The CRUD, right? You have to create, you have to read, you have to update, and you have to destroy. So you have to create, display, um, update, destroy, show. There are a lot. Figure it out when you get to the task. So see, this is how we are using what? Our console to what? To go by our principle of what? Of our CRUD principle, right? So this is just a basic something. I mean, you are supposed to obviously do a lot of it, and then the funny thing is you are not even doing it here. This is just me using it to explain. You will create a base model and then you integrate it here, right? That one is basically like, how do we call it? I think I will show you guys the file organization, right? Called base model.py, and then you create a class called base. I'm not doing. I don't want to do the assignment for you. So you create a class called base model that inherits from what? That this is where all your other classes are supposed going to inherit from the user, the place. I mean the Airbnb console. Remember, right? We have the place, we have the city, we have review. All of them are going to what? Inherit from what? The base model. So let's call this something like our database. So you are not going to be updating it. This is going to work here, right? But then how are you going to get the user, right? From we're using the base model. So the base model is what we're going to use for what? The serialization, the deserialization, the initialization, and then that is where you're going to create the ID and then the daytime. Hopefully tomorrow we'll go through it and then we start. But